2011's Green Lantern should have rocked it. Green Lantern is an awesome hero. There's an awesome mythology there. I just feel like it pulled its punches. So this is how they should have done Green Lantern. Welcome to Durbania. I'm Durbin, and this is how they should have done Green Lantern back in 2011. This video was requested by OMG Studios, and I'm pretty excited to dive into this Green Lantern thing because I didn't think 2011's Green Lantern was the worst superhero ever made. It was pretty close, but it was not the worst. It's still, the thing that I really liked about it is the symbolism between faith and fear. So I thought it was cool that they had Parallax and they had Hector Hammond representing fear and what it's like to surrender to fear and the havoc that fear can wreak on you, thinking that it's a great strength and the greatest strength in the universe because fear is a mighty powerful emotion. And will, what is that? How is that a mighty powerful emotion? Except will is really faith. It's the choice. When faced with fear, it is the choice to act, to choose a different outcome, to choose not to be in fear or react in fear, but to act in what is right. And so, to me, I liked that symbolism that was in Green Lantern. However, I think the real problem with 2011's Green Lantern is this. The script was weak. It was incredibly weak. I thought the cast was fine. I thought Ryan Reynolds is a great Hal Jordan. The problem to me was the story itself. I think they were afraid that Green Lantern was going to be incredibly weird and unrelatable. So what did they do? They held back on the story, which pulled the punch and made the script very weak, and it made Green Lantern very strange and unrelatable. Funny how fear works, isn't it? You know, the way this movie opened, it opened with a VO, and then it opened with random aliens stumbling upon where Parallax was, in prison and stuff like that. And I just feel like it shouldn't have opened that way. This should have opened very intentional, with very intentional characters with purpose, and we should have had an amazing action sequence. Why do we need an amazing action sequence in the beginning? I think twofold. Number one, to draw us in with some awesome action, but number two, I want us to see how powerful the Green Lantern are. I want the Green Lantern engaged in battle, where we see how well the Corps works together and the true potential of their power. I want to see that right here in the opening, because I feel like when Hal Jordan gets called by the Ring, he goes to Oa and he begins training, we will remember this. We will remember this opening, and we will see the potential of what he can become, and it gives us something to look forward to. It gives us something to build towards, and I like that with these DC movies, to build towards an ultimate goal. So I think that's where we need to open this film, with something very intentional and a highly awesome action sequence. So instead of random aliens, I want to pick the 5 inversions to kick off this movie. Now, if you don't know who they are, there was this massacre in Sector 666. Before the Guardians created the Green Lantern Corps, they created a race of robots called the Manhunters, and they were artificially intelligent. They were sent out to defeat evil in the universe. The problem is because they're robots, they're AI, they couldn't really discern the difference between good and evil, and a glitch went through, and then they ended up wiping out all of Sector 666, with the exception of 5 survivors. You can only imagine the pain that these guys have, the vendetta that these guys have, and the rage that these guys are fueled with. To open it up with the 5 inversions, which is led by Atrocitus, I think would be an awesome, intentional way to dive into some action in this film. So let's have this movie open with 5 massive explosions on the surface of Oa, the home planet of the Green Lanterns. I mean, how are there 5 explosions here? How is there an attack happening right now on this planet? This is what the Green Lanterns are woken up with in the middle of the night, going, how is this happening here? All their rings are pulsating with light, alerting them to trouble. Now, in the comics, the rings actually talk to the Green Lanterns, which I think is a cool thing because it reminds me of Tony Stark's Iron Man suit, the way he talks with Jarvis. That's what the rings remind me of in the comics, the way that they talk and communicate with the Lanterns. So the rings are telling the Lanterns where the explosions are and where they need to be, and I think that's a really cool concept and a great way to introduce us to that. So now we have the Green Lantern who are being drawn away from the central power battery, and they have to be drawn out in 5 different directions. So So they go to where these 5 different explosions are. At each explosion, there is one of the 5 inversions, and around them, there are troops, like mercenaries, soldiers that they've hired. And so this gives us the opportunity to have epic battles because these soldiers, these mercenaries, I mean, it's sci-fi and they're aliens. All right? So they have awesome weapons. So we really get to see the Green Lantern shine working together as a core. We get to see Kilowog, Tomare, Sinestro, Abensor all working together, and we actually get to see them in the midst of the action and fighting. I mean, how awesome would that be to give us a preview of just how powerful all of these people are in the midst of this epic battle that is unfolding on the planet where all the Green Lanterns are distracted, and we have an action sequence that's giving us chills, man. Look at these goosebumps, giving us chills. That is just so awesome. The Green Lantern Corps is so epic, but during the distraction of this battle, this is where Atrocitus sneaks away. Now you see, Atrocitus has learned a ritual where he can peer through time, where he can see the future. Using this gift, this is how he saw how he was going to get onto the planet Oa. This is where he saw a certain place he needed to go to get the next step of what he wants to accomplish. So he sneaks into the central power battery. As he enters the chamber housing the central power battery, this is the most important battery here to the Green Lanterns. Once a year, they have to return to Oa with their individual lanterns and charge their lanterns with this battery. So as he approaches, there's a window in the battery where you could look in and see green power swirling back and forth, pulsating. Boom, boom. And suddenly, there's a little yellow flicker of light. If you blinked, you missed it, but it was definitely there. This is where Atrocitus smiles.
The yellow impurity,
he says, as he steps up to the window and he looks in. He knows what is inside. Deep within this battery is buried Parallax, powered down, unconscious, trapped inside the battery of the Green Lantern Corps. Holding up his palm and placing it on the window of the battery, he begins a chant. That chant, you see energy start to leave his palm and travel to the center of the battery, where it is then begun to be absorbed by Parallax, who suddenly ignites with a yellow glow, now fully conscious, but not fully powered, but given just enough energy to wake up, to be conscious of its surroundings, to be conscious of what's going on. It is at this point that Atrocitus stops his otherworldly chant and cuts off the power. Parallax moves closer to the window that he cannot break through or get out of yet at this moment.
I know who you are, Parallax. You destroy this core. Do whatever you can to keep all their focus on them. I have my prophecy to fulfill. The prophecy of Blackest Night.
Suddenly, Parallax flashes yellow and a little bit of yellow light. Not a physical piece of Parallax, but a piece of yellow light flows through the glass, not breaking it, but literally just goes right through it and embeds itself into the palm of Atrocitus. As soon as this happened, he hears a voice inside of his own mind.
Go to Quard. Go to the weapon makers, and they will create the weapon to harness the light of your rage.
Atrocitus smiles big. This is definitely in his plans, but he has other plans as well, for this man has seen the future. Suddenly we hear, "Freeze, Atrocitus!" He turns with a grin on his face, knowing this would happen. He faces Sinestro and Abensor, the 2 greatest Green Lantern in the Corps and best friends. As these 2 stand rings pointed at Atrocitus, Atrocitus just laughs. For he knew this was coming and this was part of his plan. He puts up a pretty good fight with these guys, pretty good action sequence, but he surrenders far too easy. And as Abensor uses the constructs created by his ring to cuff him and have him all handcuffed, as he reaches out his hand to grab Atrocitus by the shoulder, Atrocitus opens his palm and the yellow light flickers out and leaps into the ring of Abensor. Nobody sees this happen. It was too fast for their eyes to see. But we, slowed down for our benefit in slow-mo, watch the yellow light invade the ring of the Green Lantern. And that's when Abensor grabs Atrocitus by the shoulder and drags him away from the chambers. Sinestro turns around and begins to scan the room with his ring. What was Atrocitus doing here? What did he plant here? And then, as he scans across the window of the power battery, all of a sudden his ring says,
"Unknown sentient being inside."
Boom! Why is this a boom moment? Sinestro says, how can it be unknown? Don't you have all the knowledge of the Guardians downloaded into you?
Yes, says the ring, but I do not know what sentient being it is that is locked within the power battery.
Sinestro is shocked. Haven't the Guardians told him everything? Haven't the Guardians made all their knowledge available in the ring? He walks up to the battery to see what could this mysterious being be. He looks within and he sees a yellow insect-like creature resembling a leech staring back at him.
Sinestro, I see great fear in you.
Sinestro backs away enraged. I am a Green Lantern. I have no fear.
Do not resist your fear, says Parallax. Fear is the greatest power one could wield. You have become master of the inferior light, but should you master fear, imagine what you can be. Do not resist, Sinestro. Do not resist.
I am a Green Lantern and I am the servant of the Guardians.
The Guardians have lied to you, says Parallax. They have kept secrets from you. They have hidden massacres from you. They have buried their sins, but oh, they will come back to haunt them.
Lies, says Sinestro, but even as he says this, he sees the being inside grow and glow brighter and brighter and brighter. Sinestro is afraid. He feels the fear in his heart. He feels the doubt nibbling at him, and he realizes this leech, this insect, is feeding off of that fear and is growing stronger. Quickly, Sinestro exits the chamber as Parallax moves towards the glass and hits it, and it cracks, but it doesn't break. It's all the energy that this being had. It must bide its time and wait to gather more energy, but it knows the seed has been planted. The 5 inversions have been caught. The other 4 have been delivered to the planet Yesmult. I don't even know if I'm saying it right. Lots of things spelled very funny in this comic book. The other 4 inversions have been delivered to their planet and imprisoned. But Atrocitus is held behind to be questioned by the Guardians. How did you invade Oa? How did you get here? How do you know what you know? And this is where Atrocitus looks up and laughs.
I have learned the rituals, he says, to peer through time and see the future. I know your sins, Guardians.
Sinestro perks up at hearing this. Abensur stands by. What is going on here?
Your Manhunters, which you created, they are responsible for wiping out every living being on Sector 666. They have wiped out my wife. They have wiped out my children. They have wiped out my people, and I have been left alone. But I have seen it, Guardians. I have seen the future, and I have seen your end. I have seen Blackest Night, your precious light, life itself, wiped away from this universe. And as you breathe your last, at last you will know the pain that you yourselves inflicted on me by your own sins.
And they silence him with their powers, and they order Abensur to carry him to the planet Yesmult to be imprisoned for the rest of his miserable life. As Abensur carries him out, a yellow flicker happens in his ring, and he begins to feel a little doubt. He begins to feel a little fear. Sinestro grabs Abensur by the shoulder. I think the Guardians are keeping secrets from us. Until this day, I never would have believed it, but my ring could not identify the living being that lived inside the power battery. This ring is supposed to have all their knowledge. They have withheld something from us. This massacre of 666. Do you think this could be true, Abensur? Do you think this could be real? We will have to look into it, Sinestro. For now, I must follow my orders. But Abensur is visibly shaken. He too is disillusioned by the secrets kept. He believes his friend that his ring is telling him something exists in the battery that somehow the ring doesn't know. How could this be? Abensur takes a ship, using his ring, creates a construct of prison bars and keeps Atrocitus behind those bars and chained up inside the ship. As they fly towards Yesmult, they fly through Sector 2814 through the Milky Way galaxy as they pass Saturn and begin to rapidly approach Jupiter. This this is when Atrocitus begins to tell the full details of the massacre of Sector 666. He tells Abensor in detail of the death of his wife and his children, the manhunters and the violence and the havoc that they wreaked upon the entire sector, every bit of life that they wiped out. While he's telling this story, Atrocitus is looking at the green bars that he hides behind. More and more yellow cracks begin to form as the yellow impurity gets stronger and stronger and stronger inside of his ring. As they begin to pass by the moon and pass by the planet Earth, this is where Atrocitus drives it home.
You have pledged your life to liars who have held from you their sins and kept from you the truth. The being that they have locked inside the power battery is a yellow being. Your ring is ineffective against anything that is the color yellow. Have you not noticed that their citadel is yellow? Have you not noticed that their thrones are yellow? They are not who you think they are.
At this, the prison bars turn completely yellow. Atrocitus breaks through the bars, breaks the chains, and leaps on Abensor, digging his claws into his chest just as they pass by Earth. Atrocitus laughs as if he knew this is exactly where the ship was going to be, as if this was exactly what was going to happen. He turns the ship and spins it in the direction of Earth, and it flies through the atmosphere into the coast of California and crashes by the coast of Coast City, and boom, it lands upon the ground. Atrocitus breaks out of the ship, jumps into the air, and runs out towards the city, towards the desert, towards something far away from the ship, leaving Abensor dying alone, deep gashes in his chest. He looks at his ring, and he says, "Choose well." It flies off of his finger and into the sky. Abensor, not yet dead. Hal Jordan's eyes pop open as if awaking from a nightmare, and we hear it playing in his head, the voice of him as a child saying,
"You're not scared, are you, Dad?"
Let's just say it's my job not to be.
And this moment here's the same too, where Ryan Reynolds wakes up and he's got the girl in bed next to him. He's overslept. Now he's rushing to get, to Ferris Air so that he can test the jet because he's, he's Hal Jordan. He's irresponsible. He's running late. He doesn't seem to have much to live for. And honestly, I really interpret he looks down on himself because he feels fear. His dad said it's my job not to be afraid, but he feels fear. Like he's failing at his one job to be like his dad, especially as a test pilot. I want to keep all this stuff the same because I like meeting Carol Ferris here. I like the fact that, we meet his friend Tom, who was also the director of Thor Ragnarok, which I thought was pretty awesome. Anyway, so I like all that being the same. And I also really like the jet dogfight scene where they're going up against the AI jets. And what I like about it is we see how smart Hal Jordan is, and then he took them straight up into the sky where they couldn't go, where they would stall out. And when he stalled out, he took them out. I like that because I think it shows how smart he is. I also really like these flashbacks here because it's critical to show you how fear has been impacting his life. He's trying to pretend he's not afraid because his dad said, it's my job not to be. And he wants to be like his dad. He's a test pilot like his dad. He admired his dad. He was hurt when his dad died right there in front of his face, okay? He's in a lot of pain right now. And what I think is really important and crucial about this scene as his jet is stalling and he can't correct it. He can't get this thing going because he's frozen up by fear. I feel like that is really important stuff to establish. And I think they did a good job establishing that in the beginning. It's just they didn't give us much payoff in the actual theatrical cut of this film. And so I want to keep that build up the same because I thought that was cool. We're just going to do our best to give more of a payoff to this build up later on. So we go through all this stuff where he goes to his nephew's birthday party and blah, blah, blah. And right as he's getting to his car, leaving his, brother's house, and just as he puts the keys in the door, just like in the movie, that green orb that surrounded him and picked him up and carried him away, we're keeping that the same. Because I think that's hilarious how that green orb picks him up and carries him, and he's screaming in the ball like, what is this? What's going on? But there is something I want to do different, and it comes from this right here, Green Lantern Secret Origins by Jeff Johns. When the ring selects him, you hear Abensor's voice, and Abensor is saying this through the ring. Hal Jordan, you have been chosen. I am Abensor, Green Lantern of your space sector. The ring is fueled by your willpower, the greatest power in the universe. The ring will make your thoughts and wishes a reality. The Green Lantern's light must be recharged with the power battery. You have been chosen for one reason among many others. You are a man who can overcome great fear. Do you accept this duty? And the ring gets passed over to Hal Jordan, and slowly but surely, Abensor dies. And a lot of this other stuff could be the same as in the movie, because I like him calling his friend Tom, and Tom knowing like that Hal found an alien and that Hal has this ring. What did he propose? Let's keep this guy Tom in the loop and all that fun stuff, and let's keep the same deal going here. Carol knocks on the door. She wants to talk to him. They go to the bar where she says, Hal, I really meticulously went over that plane. The controls did not lock up. What's going on? And he freaks out and he leaves the bar. Like, just done. I'm out of here. He gets out of the bar. I like that because what that shows, again, fear rising up in him and seizing him where he stands. And I feel like that's the whole point of this movie, right? How fear can affect us, how fear can freeze us up. Now, when you watch Green Lantern 2011, there's a scene here I really like. When Hal Jordan gets sucked up into outer space, when the ring really takes over and it teleports him over to Oa, something really interesting happens. Now, in this film, I'm not going to have Hector Hammond exist, but what I liked was the scene here as Hal was being taken up into space. We're watching the power of will affect him, and as he's being taken into space, we see the power of fear affecting Hector Hammond. And really, I liked how the movie did that because it was just the symbolism of the difference between one being built up in faith and one being torn down by fear, and what that looks like. Because both were victims of fear, but both chose different responses to that. So I just felt like this was a moment of really strong symbolism. So I'm getting rid of Hector Hammond, but here's what I want to keep. I want to keep that symbolism. As Hal is being taken into space and going through the wormhole to get to Oa, Sinestro is going back into the central chamber, to the battery. And as he's going in there, there's the crack in the glass, the being conscious inside, but not enough power to break out or get away. Hal is now getting closer and closer to the planet. We cut back to Sinestro as he walks up to the power battery. He looks deep within the battery, and there's the creature. The ring begins to talk to Hal Jordan. Hal Jordan, Green Lantern of Sector 2814, you have been chosen. You have the ability to overcome great fear. The ring itself now reminding him why he has been chosen. Cut back to Sinestro. The voice of Parallax reaches out to Sinestro.
Sinestro, you have great fear. Embrace it. Embrace the fear.
Hal Jordan exits the wormhole and begins to descend into Oa, begins to enter the planet's atmosphere. Just as Sinestro walks up closer to the Green Lantern core battery, he opens the glass window, allowing Parallax out. Parallax flies right up to the face of Sinestro and slowly begins to suck the fear out of Sinestro's body and begins to feed on Sinestro's fear. But Parallax does something else and returns that fear back into Sinestro's body. And suddenly we see Sinestro, his eyes begin to glow yellow, just as Hal Jordan's eyes begin to glow green. His suit begins to turn yellow, just as a green light suit begins to form around Hal Jordan's body as he gets closer and closer to the planet's surface. Back and forth this scene goes as more and more Sinestro begins to turn more and more to like a yellow lantern, but not quite yellow. He's just experiencing the power of fear. He's feeling fear. But at the same time, this is Parallax being a tricky little devil, and what he's doing is he's feeding himself. He's causing fear to rise up in Sinestro, and then feeding off that fear, sending it back so that it rises up in him stronger, and then feeding off that stronger fear. So we're watching this parasitic, leech-like bug thing get a little bit larger and larger and larger and glow a little bit brighter and brighter and brighter. Sinestro, yellow light beginning to engulf his body. He is intoxicated by what he is feeling, and suddenly Parallax leaves him and bursts into outer space and leaves just as Hal Jordan crosses the other way and enters the atmosphere of Oa. As Sinestro was slowly let down by the yellow power, something was downloaded into his ring, and a voice begins to speak from his ring to his mind, saying,
Go to Quard. Within your ring, I have placed the plans there that the weaponers will know what to do. They will know how to build a power battery to house the yellow light of fear.
And then he's let go, and he's intoxicated by this feeling. He's intoxicated by the fear. Suddenly he's back in his normal green uniform. Everything seems normal. But the Guardians, he says to himself, how could they not speak of this? How could they not tell us this? Our rings are ineffective against the color yellow, and yet it seems to be the most powerful. And he backs away, intoxicated, unknowing what to do with this, not knowing what to even make of this. And suddenly he jettisons into space and heads for Quard. You know, one of the huge places we got gypped with Green Lantern was his entire training experience to become a Green Lantern. I mean, in the movie, he trained alone with Kilowog, and they montaged through it really fast. In Green Lantern Secret Origin, it's not like the scene was super long, but he learned with an entire class. And so there was a lot of fun as he bonded with his classmates, as he learned from Kilowog, as he learned from Tomare. In fact, when I watched the movie Doctor Strange, and Stephen Strange was learning magic, and he was learning it in that class setting, he was learning it from the Sorcerer Supreme, he was learning it from Mordo, he was learning it from Wong, and the way he would bond with those characters, the way he'd step out on his own and things like that, it showed great growth in the character of Stephen Strange. It showed the great determination that he has. It showed him learning the magic. That's what we need to do with Green Lantern, and I'm going to use the Doctor Strange thing as the template, because we need to have those moments where he bonds with Tomare, where he bonds with Kilowog, maybe even almost beats him in a fight, but Kilowog throws something yellow through his construct, his green construct, and it hits Hal Jordan in the head, knocking him cold out. It's just like the frustration of why can't this ring work on the color yellow, and have these great bonding moments where we see Hal Jordan finding his calling, getting more and more confident, and stepping into that. And that was something really big that we missed in the movie. The next thing that needs to happen is Sinestro finally returns, and he's just visibly a very different person. The Guardians call him into a meeting and they say, Sinestro, we don't know where you've been, but you have left your sector completely unguarded. The being known as Parallax, fear incarnate, destroyed half of the life in your sector, moving from planet to planet, consuming all life. Do you know how amazing of a moment this is going to be? It's going to be amazing because Sinestro is going to feel absolutely betrayed by the Guardians, and he's going to feel absolutely betrayed by Parallax, who he thought in some way, shape, or form was at least helping him discover something greater about himself and discover a greater power. And yet this being just got Sinestro out of the way and then went and consumed the other worlds. And then the Guardians go on. The more he consumes, the more he feeds on their fear and on their life, the stronger and more powerful this being becomes. We order you to take a legion of the Honor Guard and face this foe in battle. And so he does, just like that scene in the movie. And just like the scene in the movie, here's what we're going to see. That Honor Guard absolutely wiped out like it's nothing. Because this being is yellow. The green ring is not affecting the color yellow. And he's not going to be some giant cloud monster here. He's still going to look like a bug. Rather large, about the size of the average adult man. But still, nonetheless, it's a powerful being, and he had just consumed a planet, just like in the movie. He destroys the Honor Guard, and there stands Sinestro facing this bug face to face, and the bug says,
I told you there is no power greater than the power of fear. It touches the hearts and the souls of all living beings.
You destroyed half of my sector. You killed those whose lives I was responsible for.
Had you had been there, would you have been able to stop me with your green light? You foolish being, you couldn't even stop me now. Stop resisting your fear. Embrace your fear. Embrace the superior power.
And boom, he's off, heading towards the Milky Way galaxy. This is when we cut to that big meeting that we had in Green Lantern where Sinestro meets with all the Green Lanterns and says what a horrible foe this guy is. But this time when we have this meeting, it's going to be a very emotional thing because Sinestro has battled this guy and lost. The entire Honor Guard has been lost. He's betrayed by his Guardians. He's betrayed by Parallax. He's betrayed on every level. And here he is trying to stand here and he's trying to rally the Green Lantern, but there's no Honor Guard left. The Honor Guard could go from sector to sector to sector, but not the Lanterns. They're confined to their sector. So he, in agreement with the Guardians, cancels all the rest of the training to send even the rookies home to stand guard over their sector. This is a horrible moment, especially for Hal Jordan, who's only just overcoming fear. And now he's got to go stand guard over his sector for a being that can wipe out entire planets. Gosh, this moment's going to be so cool. So after this speech, Sinestro grabs Kilowog, Tomura, and Hal Jordan because he wants to activate Jordan's ring. Together, all of them watched the last moments of Abensor as the ring did record those final events in the ship when Atrocitus killed him, and they heard the last words and heard the different things that the Guardians seemed to be keeping from them. Sinestro then invites them to go with him to Quard. In curiosity, they go. Upon arriving on Quard, this is where Sinestro reveals to them the Yellow Lantern Battery Core and the Yellow Lanterns and the rings that have been created by the weaponers of Quard, and how he wants to begin his own core to defeat this enemy, since green is ineffective against the color yellow, and it's going to be the one and only way they're going to be able to defeat this foe. And he looks at Hal Jordan and says, I have brought you here because Kilowog has told me that of all the recruits, never has he seen one with such promise. Never has he seen one grow so fast. I hate to admit it, Poozer, says Kilowog, but it is true. You are the best student I have ever had. And Hal looks at the yellow and he goes, but I've spent my life in fear. It feels stronger, but in reality, it's so much weaker. So how is fear fighting fear going to do anything? Now, this is, of course, going to bring a little bit of a fight, because there's no way Tomura and Kilowog are going to go along with, putting on yellow rings and becoming yellow lanterns. And so Sinestro, outnumbered with this, says, then how are we going to defeat this guy? How are we going to bring this to an end? I don't know, says Hal Jordan, but we can't do it. Fear facing fear. How is that going to beat this? How is that going to solve this problem at all? And they all fly away, utterly discouraged. Hal Jordan going back to Sector 2814, fearful that he won't be able to do the job that he's been called to do. Now, I want this to be an awesome moment where he meets with Carol Ferris and just tells his freaking identity to her. Number one, this is going to show big change in his heart. But number two, this is going to be him coming to a woman that he loves and trusts. All the fear that he had of letting her in is going to be gone because he's changed in his time on Oa. And now he's going to tell her everything, explain to her what he's been chosen for and the enemy that's coming, and how no other Green Lantern is allowed in his sector, so he would have to face it alone. What is he gonna do? And this is that great scene where she reminds him, the ring chose you, as you said, because of your ability to overcome fear. It sounds like your Guardians have made a lot of mistakes along the way, but it sounds like in the face of anger, the strongest choice we can make is forgiveness. In the face of fear, the strongest choice we can make is courage. Your father wasn't fearless, but he chose courage. Suddenly, Hal Jordan's ring blinks to life.
The entity known as Parallax has entered Coast City.
Parallax has arrived. And of course Parallax is in Coast City. Why would he be in Metropolis? Why would he be in Gotham? Why would he be in any other major city? He just wouldn't. He would be in Coast City. So of course Hal Jordan flies to Coast City to face this villain alone. And of course he finds in an epic battle and an epic struggle, his green light is ineffective against the yellow color of this creature. But my gosh, we are going to make this fight awesome. So we're going to make the bug bigger now. So he's much bigger than Hal, but he's not the size of a planet. He's not a huge nebulous cloud. He's just big. And they have an epic struggle. Hal Jordan picking up cars and throwing cars at him and things such as that. And the bug and him having Green Lantern constantly trying to help and stop the destruction of the city. And that's half the battle. As the bug gets thrown here, puts a huge hole in the building. Hal Jordan trying to repair it. Suddenly Sinestro shows up, blazing his green light, totally ineffective against the creature knocking Sinestro into a building. Sinestro coming back out and getting ready to fight. They stand together, throwing cars, throwing big things at it. This bug continuing to suck the fear out of Hal, sucking the fear out of Sinestro, sucking the fear out of every living being around them, feeding off that and constantly getting stronger. Every time they make a move, this beast gets stronger and not weaker. No matter what they do, they can't seem to beat it. This is where Sinestro gives up and he takes off his Green Lantern ring and hides it in his pocket dimension. He reaches through his pocket dimension and he pulls out the Yellow Lantern. And he pulls out the Yellow Lantern ring, sticks it in the lantern. Suddenly he is blazed in a yellow righteous light. It's not righteous because it's fear. And as he is consumed by fear, he suddenly races against this being. Hal Jordan screams, Sinestro, no! And as Sinestro fights this being, yeah, yellow might be a little bit effective against yellow, but as they fight, suddenly Sinestro is absorbing the fear of Parallax and getting stronger. Parallax is absorbing the fear of Sinestro and getting stronger. It's like a constant feedback loop. They're feeding off of each other's fear. And rather than Sinestro defeating Parallax or Parallax defeating Sinestro, they increase each other's strength and they continue to make each other stronger and stronger and stronger. And Sinestro is just more and more intoxicated by this great power.
That's right, Sinestro, says Parallax. This is a great and mighty power. Quit fighting it. Give yourself over to it. Give yourself over to me.
Hal Jordan summons his battery with his ring. The battery comes flying through the sky. He catches it. He sets the battery down and he looks at the battery. He looks at the enemy and he breathes. He breathes. You hear the childhood memories running through his head. You're not afraid of anything, are you, Dad? It's my job not to be. And when he hears that, he hears it differently. Rather than hearing his dad was fearless, he hears the choice his dad made. He hears the courage in his dad's voice. Hearing the courage, he places his ring in the lantern and he recites the oath. And brightest day and blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power. Green Lantern's light! Will has risen up. He is chosen. I will not belong to fear. I will not act in fear. Suddenly his ring sucks the battery dry, so his battery ceases to glow. No power left in it. All the power that was in that battery flows into the ring, flows up his costume. Suddenly he is glowing a brighter green than he's ever glowed. Things blow back out of his way. He jettisons up into the sky. He turns and he faces his enemy. And this time we see it in his eyes. Sinestro sees it in his eyes. This time the green light will work. Why is it going to work? Because he knows it. He knows that he knows it in the depths of his heart and the depths of his being. Fear has lost its power over him. He aims his ring at the beast and a great, huge beam of light strikes this beast, pinning it down to the ground. The beam begins to widen and cover the entire scope of this beast's body. It begins to shrink and get smaller as it screams, Sinestro! Smaller and smaller it gets as Sinestro stands there in utter shock and confusion. A Green Lantern ring has affected the color yellow. The power is being drained from this bug as it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Until at long last, it is but the size of a teeny tiny bug. Hal Jordan suddenly, his green suit disappears, the power gone. He falls down onto a car. He's okay though, we're not worried about it. Sinestro then covers him in yellow light to protect his identity. He picks up the beast, quickly switches rings so he's green again, and flies back to Oa. As he flies back to Oa, he gets Hal Jordan the medical attention that Hal needs, drained of all of his ring energy, drained of all of his physical energy. The Guardians now take this little bug Parallax. They divide his body into 4 parts, and his body gets sucked into 4 smaller Green Lantern power batteries. Certain Green Lanterns are now called upon to take those power batteries and hide them in the 4 corners of the universe so they can never, ever be seen again. Hal Jordan awakens. He's called before the Guardians to give a report on what happened. He tells the report, but he leaves out Sinestro becoming the Yellow Lantern. Later, he talks to Sinestro and he says, Will is the greatest power in the universe. Never, ever let fear own you again. Sinestro, humbled, nods his head and he flies away. And then, he goes back to Earth, wonderful kissy moments with Carol and all that. Blah, 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 blah. Because now he's found his purpose. He's no longer a lazy bum and now he's a superhero. So we've watched him grow and transform throughout this movie. And the greatest thing that we've seen in this movie is fear. How it can own us and how it can rule us. But even when we're feeling fear, the opportunity to make a choice is not stripped from us. And we can choose courage. We can choose not to be owned by fear. And this has been the greatest growing moment that Hal Jordan has had in this movie. He has chosen to not be owned or ruled by fear anymore. In credits. Then we got to do our post-credit scenes. Atrocitus, how we never ever came back to this guy, we're coming back to him in a post-credit scene. Because like Superman the movie, where it opens with Zod, but no more Zod for the rest of the movie, and then Superman 2 we get Zod, that's exactly what we've done here. In this post-credit scene, we see Atrocitus going through the woods, and he comes out. In front of him is a mortuary, and there is a teenager, about 18, 19 years old. He's just killed a squirrel. He's enjoyed the fact that he's killed a squirrel. He's like poking the squirrel's dead body. He's like fascinated by death. Atrocitus gets low in the bushes and he peers at this young man and he says,
I have found you, the birthplace of Blackest Night, William Hand.
Boom! It cuts to black, and William Hand becomes Black Hand, who wields the power of the Black Lantern. But then we have one more post-credit scene after all the credits. Hal Jordan flying through the clouds. He's so happy. He's so merry. Life is peachy keen and pleasant. And as he's flying, the camera moves over to his ring, and suddenly there is a yellow flicker of light. Now, if you blinked, you might have missed it. But it was there, and it happened. Yeah, that little splinter that got into Abinsor's ring, it's still there. Parallax, he's not gone. There it is. That's how I think they should have done 2011's Green Lantern. How do you think they should have done this movie? Do you think they should have gone a whole different route altogether, recasted this whole thing, different villain? I would love to hear what you think they should have done with Green Lantern. Be sure to let me know in the comments. While you're there, hit the subscribe button to become a Durbanian and hit the bell by the subscribe button. That way you're notified the moment I drop another how they should have done it, or another movie review, ranking video, theological analysis, or anything else I do here. And make sure to check out all those other videos I got here. I work hard on this, I have a lot of fun with this, and I want to talk movies with you. So check all of that out. I'm Durbin. Thanks for checking out Durbania.